You know, the idea of freedom is often talked about today. If you watch videos on YouTube or any platform, freedom is a big, much talked about. Often the world looks at it like being able to be your own boss or do your own thing, play by your own rules. But when people become Christians, there's a freedom that's found by coming into a relationship with God that completely not only flips the world's idea about it, but it gives real freedom. The thing that can often hold us back in life and certainly separates us from God is sin. And the power, when we become Christians and we put our faith in God through Jesus, that power is broken. And as people come to faith, you can often see that realization. And this is never more said succinctly than in John 8:36. If the Son sets you free, then you are free indeed. Now, other verses in the Bible, in the New Testament, include one in the book of Galatians. For it is Christ who has set us free. A little bit later, it says, because the book of Galatians, as we know it in the Bible, is a letter to several churches in the area of Galatia. So these words are from a letter. It says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." As I said before, there are some key ideas from the Bible, and one of those was there's several things that we are free from sin. We no longer are if we put our faith in God and that's fair income, and we make God the Lord of our life, He's going to change us from the inside out, and we won't be mastered by. Our master won't be the sin that power might have had over us before. And there is freedom in truth because we have not only a promise, but a promise fulfilled in the fact that Jesus came into this world, He taught certain things and then died on a cross in our place so that we could be not separated from sin when we put our faith in God and we turn from our old ways. When we have a relationship with God, we're going to want to find out what's our role in the world. A lot of people call that purpose, and there is freedom in finding your purpose. That verse where I said just before, Paul said there was freedom in the freedom that people had as Christians is not meant for selfishness, but it's actually meant to serve others with the love of God. That if our relationship with God is real, will permeate into our life, and people will see that we have God in our life and we're fair dinkum about our faith. When Jesus was on earth, He always promised that there would be what we call the Holy Spirit to guide us in day-to-day life. And the freedom that we walk into when we're fair dinkum about having God in our life is led by the promptings of the Spirit of God, which is the Holy Spirit. So that freedom that I've been talking about right now, it's first of all, it's freedom not bound by sin. It's not bound by our sin of our past. Often people try and earn their way to God, and that's not necessary, because we can't earn enough points to get to God. But Jesus made a pathway by dying on the cross in our place, and so we don't have to earn our way. All we have to do is put our faith in God and follow what He wants us to do. So in a sense, Jesus, by what He did, He's done all the heavy lifting, and that's where freedom lies. The kind of freedom that the Bible talks about is not somebody independent doing their own thing. It's something that is real in us when we let it happen, but there are going to be people around us, if we get ourselves into a good church, have good relationships with other Christians, what God is doing in them will start to be a benefit to you. Because, we say that, I've just been saying that, true freedom is serving others. Well, our friends are going to want to come and serve us. So we don't need to worry about ourselves. We don't always have to worry about ourselves, because we have to look after what God has given us. But the fact is, often God's deliverance comes through other people. With that different mindset of serving others, when you go to work, what's going to be natural to think differently about? Because, often people may want to think about, it's easy to think about yourself at work. And it's easy just to go to work, do your hours and get paid. But when we want to live out the notion of serving others, what does that mean? It might mean that being aware that your workmates might get tired from time to time. I know I worked in the signage industry for about 8 years, and I used to get inundated with questions about God. In fact, I don't really remember too many questions from other Christians, really, but I know I used to get asked plenty of questions about that. That's because when people see your life and you're fair income about it, you're not some religious nutter, they're going to start to ask questions about the way you live your life. The other thing is, like, when you're in a workplace, every work industry has peak times and low times, and sometimes it can be unsettling for other people. When you've got your workers and you can see that your work is not coming in. Well, they might start to worry, is it time, do I need to go and look for another job, And all that might be needed in those situations is just reassure them that this is a natural flow of the industry that they're working in. I know one thing, that it's probably a very good idea to be praying for your boss as he leads you. Obviously, if you're a boss, it's a great idea. to be thinking of your team and how they're going. You know, just to put that in perspective, right this morning, the owner of the business that I work for right now rang me up and asked me how my mental health was because we'd just taken on some new work. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I appreciate it so much. You know, it's easy, you know, in the stress of work, to start looking, you know, to tear others down. And sometimes even when you make a mistake, like it's, you know, you may not want to own up to it. But, you know, in serving other people, it might mean owning up to making mistakes or saying, I'm not really coping with this, because you never know, well, you know, you never know what the solution might be. It doesn't have to be worst case scenario. And getting everybody on the same page when you work in a team is a marvellous thing. I can say that right now, that where I work, we work really hard to be on the same page. And we do it, so I can't say enough about how well that happens in my workplace. But if it's not working in your place, another aspect of serving others is probably actually to spend time asking for God to create a good culture in that workplace, and to use you as the starting point. You know, it's easy to think, what can I get away with? But when we ask, how can I serve other people? Not only are we going to be more productive, we're going to be more obedient to God, and God's going to work in our life, and He's going to be working in the lives of others. So today, I want you to think about who you might need to pray for at work, what situation you might need to pray for work, and how God's going to lead you in that workplace as you go about your day. And then obviously how you're going to manage that with what I would call work, rest and play, because we all have homes to go to, a partner, a wife, or you know, kids. It's all part of the great juggling act that we seem to be involved in these days. I hope that I've been helpful today, and above all, keep seeking God in the direction that you should live your life, and that includes your work and your workmates. You have a good day, and we'll see you in the next video.